Hello, everybody, and welcome to Friday Apocryphal Podcast, your one-stop shop for everything Friday Apocryphal and podcast. And boy, do we have a show for you today. Today, we are covering Jubilees chapters 16 through 18. And it's the binding of Isaac.
It is the binding of Isaac. We're going to talk about some other stuff, too.
Oh, man. So we're going to talk about your favorite, gear sets, how you like doing Eden runs, how you always go for Mega Satan.
Yeah. So obviously, we can disregard the readings and just talk about the game.
Binding of Isaac.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is about.
Yep.
That's why we have...
So we're just doing speed runs of that roguelike RPG. I hope you enjoy. Yeah, right.
Our background is clearly a shot from the game.
Clearly.
It was, kind of done in that Cuphead art style.
Aren't those graphics amazing?
Incredible.
Yep.
Wow.
Who would have thought?
Beautiful. It's beautiful. It's green for us, but it's beautiful.
Anyways, I have Jubilees, the Hermenia translation by James C. Vanderkam.
I also have Jubilees, the Hermenia translation by James C. Vanderkam, but this is the commentary. As you can see, mine is much thicker than yours.
Wow. Well, it's all in how you use it, buddy. So,
wow.
So, let's get started with chapter 16.
Which I made thicker. Take a look.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, there it is.
There
thick
it is.
Chapter 16.
That actually looks better than
I know, that's why I did it.
Yeah.
No, I think it's because you wanted to make the thick joke. And then
actually,
realized
I was
later.
already changing the font.
Yeah, okay.
And I decided
Sure.
the one right after this one I was on, Arial Thick, I think. I was like, yeah, that's the one.
I don't think it's called Arial Thick.
Well, it's close enough.
Arial
Might be
Bold.
Might be bold.
Arial Thick. 2 C's. Okay, so chapter 16. Anything you want to say about chapter 16 before we get into it?
Sure I do. Yeah, the chapter relates several key events in the lives of Abraham and Sarah with an interlude regarding the destruction of Sodom and its area. Jubilees 16:1-4 tells how the angels promised Abraham once more that he and Sarah would become parents, how Sarah laughed, and how they chided her.
So that's interesting because we noted last week that it was Abraham who was listed as the reason why, in chapter 15, verse 17, where Abraham fell prostrate and was very happy, right?
Sure.
And then in verse 19, it's like the Lord said, very well, but Sarah too will give birth to a son for you, and you will name him Isaac, which implies that the reason was that Abraham was very happy. And the commentary noted that...
that it was some sign of joy.
Yeah, that he may have been laughing.
Yeah.
Right? And here, we're going to get the traditional Sarah narrative.
Yeah.
Right, which is why they name him Isaac. But I find it interesting that they would place those two, immediately after each other.
Right, yeah.
Anyways.
It is a little weird here. So, continuing the commentary, following this episode, the writer briefly summarizes the Sodom and Gomorrah story, the rescue of Lot and his family, his sin with his daughters, and the resulting punishment for his descendants. The account then returns to Abraham and Sarah, their travels, her pregnancy, and the birth and circumcision of Isaac. The following narrative, verses 15-19, sits uncomfortably in its context because it deals with her pregnancy. It also contains promises that the angels delivered to Abraham about Isaac and Isaac's special son, who would become the ancestor of God's holy people. The chapter ends with a unit describing Abraham's joyful celebration of the first festival of tabernacles and the obligation incumbent upon Israel to celebrate it annually in the 7th month.
Okay, so note this, that chapter 15 takes place during the 5th year of the fourth week of this Jubilee, 1986, in the third month, in the middle of the month. Right?
Okay.
Okay. So when we start 16, here it starts, on the first day of the fourth month, we appeared to Abraham at the oak of Mamre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were just over there at the Oak of Mamre, weren't we?
I think so.
Yeah.
Weren't we?
Yeah, I think we were.
I think we were. But so here we now have like a progression of time. So we can follow this because we're going to see Sarah's pregnancy.
Yep.
Right? And so that should take 9 months. Roughly.
Yeah, about.
Okay. We spoke with him and told him that a son would be given to him from his wife, Sarah. Sarah laughed when she heard that we had conveyed this message to Abraham, but when we chided her, she became frightened and denied that she had laughed about the message.
So the author, however, proves less charitable about Sarah's laughter than he did about Abraham's in 1517. The patriarchs chuckling the writer regarded as a happy laugh, but the context makes it more difficult to assess the matriarch's laughter as something commendable, despite the fact that a form of the same Hebrew word is used. So that's kind of a bummer there.
Mm.
Oh, and here's something else. Genesis 18:11 reports that it had ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women, and verse 12 has her questioning whether she and her aged husband would be able to have a child. Sarah is not allowed to speak for herself, and the Lord reports her words to Abraham and takes her to task for them. The divine response proves that her reaction betrayed disbelief. Quote, the Lord said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh and say, shall I indeed bear a child now that I am old? Is anything too wonderful for the Lord? In Jubilees, there is a direct encounter between... Actually, hold on. So they reference Genesis 18:13 through 14, and also verse 15. Apparently in verse 15, it seems the Lord and Sarah do speak together.
Right here in verse 3.
Since he replied, oh, yes, you did, when
Right.
she denied laughing.
So here in verse 3, it says, we told her that the name of her son, as it is ordained and written on the heavenly tablets, Isaac, and that when we returned to her at a specific time, she would become pregnant with a son. So, previously they were saying we spoke to him, to Abraham, to tell her. Now it's saying we told her.
Yeah.
Right? So there's that. So she's going to become pregnant. Right? The announcement that she's going to become pregnant is here in the first day of the fourth month.
Yeah.
Right. During this month, the Lord executed the judgment of Sodom and Gomorrah, Zeboim, and all the environs of the Jordan. What's Zeboim? Was that mentioned?
Oh,
I
it's
think
old.
so.
Zebulun, we talked about it maybe 4 times. It was definitely in, like, the biblical equivalent of this part.
Pretty sure, yeah.
It's probably glossed over here, and it was sort of glossed over then, but, like, Zebulun was definitely a city.
Zeboim.
Zeboim? Oh, I don't know then. Maybe not.
So, yeah, 3 cities are named. Notorious Sodom and Gomorrah, but also Zeboim. See Jubilees 13:23. And the district is called the Environs of the Jordan. And apparently that's named in Genesis 13:10 and 11. Genesis reports that the deity rained sulfur and fire from the Lord out of heaven. Jubilees says that he executed judgment on them and burned them with fire and brimstone and annihilated them until the present.
Okay, so Zeboim in chapter 13 is mentioned as one of the cities that the 5 kings capture when they took Lot.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a city. It's out there, but obviously not as well mentioned as Sodom and Gomorrah.
Of course, yeah, because Sodom and Gomorrah, those are the interesting ones.
Mm-hmm. Well, here it says, he burned them with fire and brimstone and annihilated them until the present, in accord with what I have now told you about all their actions, that they were depraved and very sinful, that they would defile themselves, commit sexual sins in their flesh, and do what was impure on the earth. So here, Zeboim is included in the list of cities that is destroyed at the same time as Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah.
Or at least in the month.
Well, in the same event, even.
Yeah, the same event.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting. The Lord will execute judgment in the same way in the places where people commit the same sort of impure actions as Sodom, just like the judgment on Sodom. The Latin reads, he will judge them. But we went about rescuing Lot because the Lord remembered Abraham. So he brought him out from the overthrow of Sodom. He and his daughters committed a sin on the earth that had not occurred on the earth from the time of Adam until his time, because the man had sex with his daughter.
Yeah, so the author shows no pity for Lot, who was hardly the instigator of the misconduct in Genesis. His daughters were the ones who made him drunk and then had sex with him. The reader of Jubilees learns none of the specifics, only that he and his daughters were guilty. In verse 6, the angel had said, the Lord will execute judgment in the same way in the places where people commit the same sort of impure actions as Sodom, just like the judgment on Sodom. Now comes a case in point. The important implication of the sexual sins involved is that Lot's descendants, the Moabites and Ammonites, according to Genesis 19:37 through 38, they are not named in Jubilees, were to meet the fate of Sodom, also destroyed because of sexual sins, removing and uprooting them so that Lot would have no surviving descendants on the day of judgment.
Jason Summer points out Deuteronomy 29:23. The whole land is brimstone, like the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah, Adama and Zeboim, which the Lord overthrew in his anger and his wrath. So, okay, that was in there. I just didn't recall it. It's weird because if Zeboim is part of the list, right?
Why don't we always bring it up?
Yeah,
Why isn't it? Because it's not one of the ones that's used as an example.
I don't,
right, but we don't get the story of Gomorrah either. We get the story of Sodom in Genesis.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I here's the thing. I don't remember Zeboim being in
Genesis.
Yeah, in Genesis.
Right, but it is in Deuteronomy.
Yeah.
We should look into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do a thing on what is Zeboim.
Oh my God, no!
Yeah.
It's a city.
No,
the answer: a city. Video over.
What
the
was Zeboim?
Well, there's
city?
a lot that you can say about a city, Lawrence. What was Ur?
It was the. Was that the first city, or am I thinking of Uruk? No, I'm thinking of Uruk. Yeah.
But you could surely say a lot of things about what is Jerusalem, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I'm sure we could figure out what Zeboim is. I don't know. Maybe.
Oh yeah, it was in there.
It was
Genesis. Okay.
Oh.
Thanks, Jason. I didn't remember that.
Oh.
I was kind of right. Yay.
Weird. Why don't we remember that?
I don't because
I mentioned in all the other examples that bring up Sodom and Gomorrah, they just say Sodom and Gomorrah usually.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they do it in these two examples.
Yeah.
And I think in other examples.
Well, Sodom's obviously the big one. That's the one that gets talked about.
Yeah, but the same thing happens with, because in Sodom, that's presumably the only place where something different happens, right? Because that's the only place where Lot is.
Right.
But in Genesis, Abraham argued with God to, if there's even 10 righteous people, right? And, one would presume that there might be at least one in Zeboim or Adama.
Yeah.
Right. So strange that we wouldn't get any real stories about that, at least not that we've run into yet. We could run into more stories about Zeboim.
I guess we'll see.
Maybe.
Someday we'll get some context clues.
Hosea 11:8.
Yeah, that's later.
yeah, we'll run into it later. Maybe we'll know more about it by then.
Yeah.
Anyways, so yeah, they committed this sin. Here it has been commanded and engraved on the heavenly tablets regarding all his descendants that he is to remove them, uproot them, execute judgment on them like the judgment of Sodom, and not to leave him in any human descendants on the earth on the day of judgment.
There it is. Moabites and Ammonites.
So these heavenly tablets, I make mention of them in the Quran script,
Yeah.
which I've sent to you.
You have.
Which you have to read.
Yes, I do.
Yes. And I don't know if I really covered them in that great of depth because, it's just one feature thing.
Sure.
Right. But they get mentioned quite a few times in Jubilees.
Yeah, they do. They get mentioned a lot in, in quite a lot of Jewish literature.
Yeah.
Yeah, you talk about, there are some references in Revelation. You have plenty of stuff in Enoch.
Yeah, but we have like multiple references to
Shout
the
out to
heavenly
Enoch.
tablets in the same chapter here,
Yeah.
right? Which is not common. I mean,
Jubilees does a lot more, sure.
yeah. Well, because it's the angel talking here, I think they have the opportunity to mention them more. But we get more details on the heavenly tablets, basically. And it looks like the heavenly tablets in Jubilees are like a deterministic account of everything that happens.
Sure.
Right. Whereas in other accounts, the heavenly tablets, well, like Muslims, right, would consider their well-guarded tablet to be literally the Quran.
Okay.
Right.
Well, yeah, there are a couple different interpretations of those heavenly tablets, but in a sense, they are, kind of a blueprint for history, I guess, for the way things will unfold. It's pretty deterministic. Or, you can have the interpretation of, well, no, I guess that would be for the heavenly tablets, but you also have the people's names are on the heavenly tablets too. Like, not just, the things that they will do, but also whether, I think their judgment, like, whether or not they're good too is supposed to be recorded.
Now, with the sources that I was reading on the Quran, the original sources of the Quran by W. St. Clair Tisdall.
The source list is on Patreon.
Yeah, the source list is on Patreon. Go check it out if you want to. But he says that the heavenly tablets in some pieces of literature are referred to as literally the contents that are put inside of the Ark of the Covenant. Right? And so this could be the 10 Commandments. It could be the entire law of Moses. It could be the Torah. It could be like the Torah, that it could be the entire Tanakh. It could be the Tanakh and the Talmud, right? Depending on which Jews at which points in time and what places you ask.
So the fate of the two peoples, the Ammonites and the Moabites, is fixed, engraved on the heavenly tablets, and then I don't know what his first name is, but Kugel offers an explanation here. For why so he actually suggests this is an interpolator who added that passage. The original author had said that Lot was saved because the Lord remembered Abraham. That is, not for any merit of his own, but skipped the story of Lot and his daughters. They were not Israel's ancestors, hence unimportant. The interpolator felt the need to condemn them explicitly. And then, that was a quotation from Kugel. And then Vanderkam goes on to say, he explains it somewhat differently in the commentary section of the book. There, the act of leniency in saving Lot troubled the interpolator. Lot ought to have been killed, he then cites from the verse. It should be objected, however, that it is not Lot, but his descendants who are the subjects treated on the heavenly tablets. In the version of his interpolations article printed in the book, where it is entitled The Contradictions in the Book of Jubilees, Kugel cited the translation of the verse from Vanderkam. So he cited it from his own translation. And inferred from the word now that the information appears to have been entered on the heavenly tablets after Lot's misdeed. In the commentary, however, he says now seems to be a mistranslation. Okay, so he is just repudiating this guy who took his translation improperly, I guess.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anyways, during this month, Abraham migrated from Hebron. He went and settled between Kadesh and Sur in the boundaries of Gerar. This is a place where it says boundaries. This is a place where the Latin and Ethiopic versions reflect a Greek word, oros, that, depending on the breathing mark read with it, can mean either boundary, so Latin, or mountain, so Ethiopic.
So it would be oros or horos.
So it's either boundary or mountain. Ethiopic goes with mountain. Latin goes with boundary.
Gotcha.
In the middle of the 5th month, he migrated from there and settled at the well of the oath. You remember the well, right?
Yeah.
In the middle of the 6th month, the Lord visited Sarah and did for her as he had said. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son in the 3rd month, in the middle of the month, on the day that the Lord had told Abraham, on the festival of the first fruits of the harvest, Isaac was born. Abraham circumcised him on the 8th day. He was the first to be circumcised according to the covenant that was ordained forever. So here we have times, right? We know the festival of the first fruits of the harvest, right? So that's a definitive endpoint for when Isaac is born. So she gets pregnant in the middle of the 6th month, which they're 30-day months, right? So
yeah, so then a
this would
9-month pregnancy would entail that the child would be born the next year in the middle of the 3rd month. Yeah.
So, yes, she became pregnant and gave birth in the 3rd month in the middle of the month. All right, so they at least had that right. They could figure that out by this time.
So the word used for at the time in Genesis 15, apparently the Hebrew word, while I can't read it, apparently the root of that offered the textual evidence that Isaac was born on a holiday.
It's interesting. In the 6th year of the 4th week, 1987, we came to Abraham at the well of the oath. We appeared to him just as we had said to Sarah we would return to her, and she would have become pregnant with a son. We had returned during the 7th month, and in front of us we had found Sarah pregnant. We blessed him and told him, almost all of the Ethiopic copies read her instead of him, everything that had been commanded for him, that he would not yet die until he became the father of 6 sons, and that he would see them before he died, but that through Isaac he would have a reputation and descendants. All the descendants of his sons would become nations and be numbered with the nations. But one of Isaac's sons would become a holy progeny and would not be numbered among the nations, for he would become the share of the Most High. All his descendants had fallen into the share that God owns, so that they would become a treasured people of the Lord. Latin reads sanctified, Ethiopic adornment, instead of treasured, people of the Lord, out of all the nations, and that they would become a kingdom, a priesthood, and a holy people. Then we went on our way and told Sarah all that we had reported to him.
Yeah, so
the two of them were extremely happy.
Yeah, so Lots of stuff happened there.
Yeah, lots of stuff happens here. So
He's gonna
Abraham
get,
has
good
six
amount of-
sons.
Yeah, good amount of kids. Good for him. And well, actually, it kind of sucks for him.
Who are these other four sons?
Well, the
of
thing
Abraham?
is, they were listed as the nations,
Mm.
right? So they would be the enemies because the nations was a common designation for the enemies of Israel.
Mm.
So that's why the holy progeny that's being talked about, Israel, is not among the nations.
Mhm.
That would be my interpretation of that. So the description of and apparently like the very first note in this for verses 16 through 18 is the Ethiopic and Latin texts do not agree regarding whom the angel blessed and to whom they spoke in verse 16. So yeah, that's one of the notes there. You already noted that the Ethiopic has her as the suffix.
Yeah.
And the Latin has the masculine, which also could be feminine. It's noted, but it's you just don't know.
Mhm.
Although the masculine reading is preferable. So, let's talk about some of the stuff. So the description of the future child Jacob and his descendants is found in verses 17b through 18. According to the writer of Jubilees, Isaac's special son would become a holy progeny or seed, and the phrase is used a whole lot.
Mhm.
Not to be numbered among the nations, for he would become the share of the Most High. Deuteronomy 32, 8 through 9, and the form familiar to the author, lies behind the formulation, including the title for God. When the Most High apportioned the nations, when he divided humankind, he fixed the boundaries of the people. And actually, Chris Hansen,
Which Chris Hansen?
our friend Chris Hansen.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. They have been working a lot on that verse.
Mhm.
And they think that it has evidence. It shows evidence of polytheism in the Bible. Yeah.
What else is Chris up to?
Uh,
I mean-
Twitter.
I mean,
I guess Twitter.
Bible stuff.
Oh, I think it's mostly just Jesus mythicism right now.
Oh. Well, I guess we'll have to have Chris back on once we get to the New Testament.
Yeah. That'll be fun.
Or sooner,
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure Chris has read a ton of stuff.
Yeah. Anyways, but yeah, that's for Deuteronomy 32, 8 through 9. Continuing here. Also, we can cross-reference Jubilees 15:30 through 32 and Leviticus 20 through 26. You shall be holy to me, for I, the Lord, am holy. And I have separated you from the other peoples to be mine. That's what I'm saying. That Israel was separated from the nations. That it alone was the Lord's portion. Entailed that it was not counted among them. And then there are a couple other things there. And then the 6 total kids, right?
Mhm.
I'm currently trying to find the reference to that in here. So yeah, he would have 6 sons, but the burden of their message is that even with the arrival of more sons who presumably would have been circumcised, Isaac would be the one through whom Abraham would have a name and seed. The passage parallels 15:20, where Ishmael, who was circumcised but was not the one through whom the covenant would be transmitted, would nevertheless become a great nation. Keturah's sons, like Ishmael, would father entire peoples, but none of them would constitute the unique nation. Already at this early time, when Isaac is an infant, Abraham learns that one of Isaac's sons, obviously Jacob, would become a holy progeny and would not be numbered among the nations.
Mhm. All right, let's continue. There he built an altar for the Lord, who had rescued him and who was making him so happy in the country where he resided as an alien. He celebrated a joyful festival in this month for 7 days near the altar that he had built at the well of the oath.
Yeah, it is a happy scene, one calling for a holiday, celebration. And Abraham is the first person on earth to mark one for the occasion. A joyous festival. The theme of, it appears a whole bunch of times in the section, making him so happy, overjoyed. And lots of stuff about joy and happiness in this section.
Mm-hmm. He constructed tents for himself and his servants during this festival. He was the first to celebrate the Festival of Tabernacles on the earth. During these 7 days, he was making throughout all the days, each and every day, an offering to the Lord on the altar. 2 bulls, 2 rams, 7 sheep, 1 goat for sins in order to atone through it for himself and his descendants. And as a peace offering, 7 rams, 7 kids, 7 sheep, 7 he-goats, as well as their cereal offerings and their libations over all their fat. All of these he would burn on the altar as a choice offering for a pleasing fragrance. In the morning and evening he would burn fragrant substances, frankincense, galbanum, stacte, nard, myrrh, spikenard, and costum. All 7 of these he would offer beaten, equally mixed, pure. All right, so you have an incense mix recipe in Jubilees.
Do you think spikenard is spiked?
No.
No?
No,
Damn.
I don't think so.
Bummer.
He celebrated this festival for 7 days, being happy with his whole heart and on all his being, he and all those who belonged to his household. There was no foreigner with him, nor anyone who was uncircumcised. He blessed his Creator who had created him in his generation, because he had created him for his pleasure. For he knew and ascertained that from him there would come a righteous plant for the history of eternity, and that from him there would be holy descendants, so that they should be like the one who had made everything. He gave a blessing and was very happy. He named this festival the Festival of the Lord, a joy acceptable to the Most High God. We blessed him eternally, and all his descendants who would follow him throughout all the history of the earth, because he had celebrated this festival at its time in accord with the testimony of the heavenly tablets.
Yeah, and I mean, that would kind of fit in with when like the sun moves around in accordance to its own time and stuff like that.
So let's talk about these heavenly tablets a bit more.
Okay.
Right?
So sorry,
here-
what verse was that?
That was verse 28.
28, okay.
So these heavenly tablets, right? They're blessing him because he's acting in accord with the heavenly tablets. Does that mean-
you follow God's rules, you do the things that God said you're going to do, and that's good.
Right,
because you're following the divine order.
The heavenly tablets are like a deterministic thing, right? They have history, at least in here, the way that they've written it. They have history written out so that things progress in a certain way. But if that's the case, then why would they bless him for following the heavenly tablets when it doesn't seem like you have much of a choice but to follow the heavenly tablets?
So,
Elder Scrolls.
Abraham's correct celebration of the festival won for him an eternal blessing from the angels and also procured one from his descendants. The angels note in particular that he had observed the holiday at its time, as stipulated on the celestial tablets, that they adduce the timing as a reason for blessing is noteworthy, not only because it is consistent with the book's emphasis on the correct calendar, but also because Jubilees 16:20 through 31 does not define exactly when in the 7th month Abraham celebrated the first festival of tabernacles. The writer does not even say he began the holiday in the middle of the month, as he did for the Festival of Weeks. In Jubilees 32:4, where Jacob celebrates the festival, he does stipulate that it begins on the 15th of the 7th month, and later indicates that he celebrated for 7 days, and then an 8th day is added. That's exactly what the reader expects. From the angel's words, it follows that Abraham was not acting on his own initiative in celebrating the holiday as he did. He was simply proceeding in harmony with what was already written on the celestial tablets. Yeah.
But he presumably wouldn't have much of a choice, would he?
Well,
No, apparently you can be dissonant. If you could be harmonic.
Yeah, something like that.
So
Like it is.
If you're not like deterministically required to,
Maybe it's some sort of compatibilism.
but compatibilism fails. Like pretty much.
Yeah.
That's my summary of compatibilism. It fails.
Maybe it's just a failure. Maybe.
No, he obviously succeeded.
No, I mean the metaphor.
Okay.
Was it written in the heavenly tablets that they would bless him for following the heavenly tablets?
I don't know.
Was it written in the heavenly
Probably
tablets
not.
whether or not you had to follow the heavenly tablets?
Ooh, yeah.
Well, you would assume that you would have to follow them because they're the heavenly tablets.
Well,
in the heavenly tablets,
mean-
it says you just maybe.
Well,
I don't
then
know.
You just
God
do it.
would
It's
have
like-
to create people with like the a priori information that they need to follow the heavenly tablets.
Yeah, but then that'd be weird because what if you don't? And like, yeah, I don't know.
This is nonsense. For this reason, it has been ordained on the heavenly tablets regarding Israel that they should celebrate the festival of tabernacles joyfully for 7 days during the 7th month, which is acceptable in the Lord's presence, a law that is eternal throughout their history in each and every year. This has no temporal limit, because it is ordained forever regarding Israel that they should celebrate it, live in tents, place wreaths on their heads, and take leafy branches and willow branches from the stream.
Yeah.
So this is what's happening now, right?
People putting.
Like Sukkot, yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah,
thi-
Sukkot, of
this
course.
is happening right now, and in New York, apparently, they've had some problems with social gatherings,
I'm sure they have.
and like Orthodox Jews are taking to the streets in protest against the police who are preventing them from gathering to do their Sukkot activities. But I wonder, do those same Orthodox Jews live in tents during the holiday? Because
Probably not.
I don't recall any Jews that I've ever known going to live in
living in tents,
during
no.
Sukkot. Right? But
Different times.
different times, different place.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So there's a bit here. The thought of the eternal validity of the law is repeated in verse 30, but here the writer adds some details about the way in which Israel is to celebrate the festival. So live in tents. Yeah, the practice, of course, gives the name to the festival. See verse 21 for the tents Abraham made for himself and his servants. And then we can back in Leviticus, there was stuff on how to actually celebrate it.
Of course, it's in Leviticus.
Yeah, because everything is in Leviticus. So place wreaths on their heads. These objects are a surprise in that, as commentators regularly note,
It's Greek. It's Greek as fuck.
Well, none of the legal sections in the Hebrew Bible mentions them in connection with the festival, nor is there evidence for such a practice in later Jewish sources. Beer is a person. We're talking about a person named Beer, by the way.
Beer.
Yes. I know, right?
What luck.
Yeah. Beer, the first to make the point, observed that bridegrooms wore wreaths on their wedding day and referred to Book of Wisdom 2:7-8 and 3 Maccabees 4:8, where wreaths are associated with festive occasions, but not specifically with the Festival of Tabernacles.
Well, see, I remember, because it seems Greek to me, and I remember in Maccabees.
This is 3 Maccabees they're talking about.
Yeah, they're talking about 3 Maccabees there. But I remember when we read 1st and 2nd Maccabees that there were complaints about Greek customs being brought into Israel.
Yeah.
And I have to wonder if this wreath thing is like a Greek formalism.
There is actually something on here.
Oh.
Yeah, or in here on that. Well, this is gonna start off not great. Adolf
Can't start well.
Buchler. I
Wow,
think
we got a guy named Beer and a guy named Adolf.
yeah, all in one day.
Incredible.
Yeah, Adolf Buchler, I think.
So close.
Who believed?
Buchler, so close.
Yeah,
Buchler.
Who believed Jubilees had been composed in Greek, attempted to find Hellenistic traits in it, and listed these wreaths as one of them. He noted that of the sources Charles listed Wisdom and 3rd Maccabees were Egypto-Hellenistic, and supplemented them with the evidence of 2 Maccabees 6:7. On the monthly celebration of the king's birthday, the Jews were taken under bitter constraint to partake of the sacrifices, and when a festival of Dionysus was celebrated, they were compelled to wear wreaths of ivy and to walk in the procession in honor of Dionysus.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, the wreaths of ivy.
Right. So since Dionysus was a god associated with harvest and wine, it must have seemed natural to Buchler to consider the wreaths a Dionysic trait. He also adduced 2 non-Jewish texts that he thought relevant to the issue. The first comes from Plutarch. Do we have Plutarch? No, we have Tacitus. Okay.
We might have Plutarch over there.
Somewhere, I don't know.
I think it's on the shelf.
Yeah, the first comes from Plutarch, whose writings contain a comparison between the festivals for Dionysus, or Latin Bacchus, and the festival of tabernacles. So the title of the section here. Questiones convivales, a unit in his moralio. There you go.
Did you have to go so Italian?
Yes, I did.
Mamma mia.
I did have to go so Italian.
It's not offensive for Ruben. He's Italian.
Question 6.2, a part of a discussion at a symposium where the
As a Sicilian, I take offense to that.
I knew you'd do that. I knew you would. I was waiting for it. I was like, he's got to sip his coffee first.
Yeah.
So question 6.2, a part of a discussion at the symposium where the relation between Dionysus and the Jewish religion had arisen, presents an Athenian named Morogenes. Yeah, I think that's it. As saying...
I don't think Morogenes is real.
No, not Morogenes.
Yeah, I know. I'm making a joke.
It's illusory, Lawrence.
Okay.
It's not really written there.
Yeah, you're right. I've been wrong this whole time.
That's a hell of a name, though. Morogenes.
Yeah. So anyways, to continue this, so the Athenian, Morogenes,
Write that down. I like that name.
says, the time and character of the greatest, most sacred holiday of the Jews clearly befit Dionysus. And then he makes like a whole argument for it.
Right, because it's a harvest festival.
Yeah, so this interesting, if somewhat confused description of the Festival of Tabernacles draws associations with Dionysus, but it says nothing about the Jews wearing wreaths during it. The second text Buchler adduced it from is Tacitus. Yep, Tacitus. Yeah, but since their priests used to chant to the accompaniment of pipes and drums and to wear garlands of ivy, and because a golden vine was found in their temple, some have thought that they were devotees of Father Liber, that's an epithet of Dionysus, the conqueror of the East, in spite of the incongruity of their customs. There is no mention of the Festival of Tabernacles here, though Tacitus may have intended it. Yeah, so he may have intended that association there. Note, too, that he speaks only of priests wearing garlands, not all celebrants. The upshot is that no other source, Jewish or non-Jewish, joins Jubilees in either describing or prescribing the wearing of wreaths during the festival. Rubenstein thinks Jubilees provides documentation for one of the varied customs associated with the festival, a custom that was not adopted as standard at a later time. So, quite a lot of discussion around that. So what exactly it shows and how it shows it.
Yeah. Let's continue. Abraham took palm branches. Ethiopic manuscripts read the heart of the palms. Latin may have done so as well, with the meaning being something like the central stalk/branches of the palms. The expression comes from Leviticus 23:40, wherein Masoretic text, branches of palm trees are mentioned. Abraham took palm branches and the fruit of good trees, and each and every day he would go around the altar with the branches 7 times per day. In the morning he would give praise and joyfully offer humble thanks to his God for everything. And that's the end of the chapter.
Yeah, it is.
If you enjoyed the stream so far, give us a like, comment, subscribe.
Share it around.
Just give it to your friends.
Yeah,
give it to them.
Yeah.
Give it to your
them.
friends.
Infect them with our live stream or video if you're watching this after we're done streaming.
Yeah, you could do that. Just hand it right to them.
Yep.
Anyways, chapter 17, huh? That's what we're doing today. Or now, I should say.
Yeah,
we
today.
did something else today, too.
Still
And we're going to
today,
do
though.
something else.
You're doing so
later.
well, Lawrence.
I need water.
Wow. So, yep.
Good, you have water.
I know. Dry throat. I don't know if you have anything to say before hopping into the section or not. If not, I can just hop into it.
Nope.
All right, fantastic. So the weaning of Isaac, dismissal of Hagar and Ishmael, and questions about Abraham's faithfulness. Oh, man. Questions about his faithfulness.
Yeah.
Come on, Abraham. All right. I hope he didn't do anything. That'd be horrible. In the first year of the 5th week in this Jubilee, 1989, Isaac was weaned. Abraham gave a large banquet in the 3rd month on the day when his son Isaac was weaned.
This is roughly the same as in Genesis, except it has a date.
Okay. Thank you for the date.
Mm-hmm.
Now Ishmael, the son of Hagar the Egyptian, was in his place in front of his father Abraham. Abraham was very happy and blessed the Lord because he saw his own sons and had not died childless. So he's very happy about that.
Mm-hmm.
His lineage continues. He remembered the message that he had told him on the day when Lot had separated from him. He was very happy because the Lord had given him descendants on the earth to possess the land. With his full voice, he blessed the Creator of everything. When Sarah saw Ishmael playing and dancing, and Abraham being extremely happy, she became jealous of Ishmael. Wait, what?
Huh?
So she was jealous of, well, I mean, it wasn't, her kid. It was
Yeah,
her
so
stepkid, I guess.
in
But still,
Jubilees, the son of Hagar the Egyptian.
it's a kid. Let the kid be happy, damn it. That's verse 4. Oh, and it continues here. She said to Abraham, "Banish this maidservant and her son, because this maidservant's son will not be an heir with my son Isaac."
So in Ethiopia, okay.
So he got some real, she's a bitch, is what she
Yeah,
is.
so he's Ishmael, not simply
How
the
old
son
is
of
she now?
a foreign woman and
An old hag.
Abraham. And in the Ethiopic text, his name is moved before that of Sarah for emphasis. In Ethiopic Jubilees, Ishmael is not playing with her son Isaac, but is just playing and dancing, apparently on his own, as one might expect for a son who would by now be 16 years old. Jubilees' positive portrayal of what Ishmael is doing contrasts sharply with the later exegetical tradition in which he is accused of idolatry. Since the Hebrew text of Genesis 21:9 lack with her son Isaac, the verse indicated only that Ishmael was playing and left the way open for speculation about the kind of play involved. The participle used, matzchek, I think, encouraged expositors to examine other passages where it occurred, such as Exodus 32:6, in which it was associated with the Israelite worship of the golden calf. Targum Pseudo...
Which we have a video about. Go watch it.
Yep.
Golden calf.
Targum Pseudo-Jonathan, Genesis 21:9. See also Targum Neophiti to the passage. Renders the word as sporting with an idol and bowing down to it. Later in the chapter, so in other books, they talk about him being an idolater. But Jubilees doesn't put this polemic in there. It says that he's playing with Isaac. Now, the word dancing has caused some debate because it's not in any ancient versions of Genesis. So, yeah, that's basically that. Sarah's jealousy isn't mentioned in Genesis.
Okay, so is this the author of Jubilees turning Sarah into the bad guy here?
Dun, dun,
This
dun.
is probably because Sarah does in Genesis request that Hagar be sent away with Ishmael.
Oh yeah, yes.
So I guess this is the author of Jubilees trying to explain her reasoning that she's jealous, which would be fitting because, as we know, Yahweh is a jealous God. And now she's a member of the chosen people who will be like Yahweh, as written in Jubilees.
If you want to tie it together that way. Anyways, yeah, so she asked for the kid and his mom to go away. For Abraham, the command regarding his servant girl and his son, that he should banish them for himself, was distressing. But the Lord said to Abraham, it ought not to be distressful for you regarding the child and the maidservant. Listen to everything that Sarah says to you and do it, because through Isaac you will have a reputation and descendants. Now, with regard to the maidservant's son, I will make him into a large nation, because he is one of your descendants. Okay, so he's going to make them strong and large, but still one of Israel's enemies, one of the nations.
Right. And in Genesis, it doesn't mention Hagar as being a reason for Abraham's distress, whereas in Jubilees, it does. It says, for Abraham, the command regarding his servant girl and his son, that he should banish them from himself, was distressing. Whereas in Genesis 21:11,
right, but that wasn't
the matter was very distressing to Abraham on account of his son.
Okay, I see. Okay,
Adds this.
yeah, it adds that he cares about the servant girl too.
Right. Whereas you might not get that feeling in Genesis. When I read Genesis, it really seemed to me like, you know, he fucked Hagar because he was told to fuck Hagar, and then he didn't really give a shit about her otherwise.
Yeah, but then he cared about the son. Yeah, sure. Okay. So Abraham rose early in the morning, took food and a bottle of water, placed them on the shoulders of Hagar and the child, and sent her away. She went and wandered about in the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water in the bottle was gone, the child grew thirsty. He was unable to go on and fell. His mother, see, this is way more detailed. This is new stuff.
And graphic.
Interesting stuff. Okay. His mother took him, and going on, she threw him under a fir tree. And there is a textual note there. The word Elias in Ethiopic, perhaps a transcription of the Greek word for olive tree, Elias, may be a mistake for elates, pine or fir tree. Yeah, that's the textual note that you're getting.
Tell me when you get to the end of 14.
Okay. Then she went and sat opposite him at a distance of a bow shot, for she said, "May I not see the death of my child?" When she sat down, she cried. Wow. You're a bad mom.
Yeah.
Won't even be around for the death of your kid? Like, my child is dying. I'm not here for any of that.
Yeah.
Just leave him there alone.
Yeah.
An angel of God, one of the holy ones, said to her, "What are you crying about, Hagar? Get up, take the child, and hold him in your arms, because the Lord has heard you and has seen the child." She opened her eyes and saw a well of water. So she went, filled her bottle with water, and gave her child a drink. Then she set out and went toward the wilderness of Paran. When the child grew up, he became an archer, and the Lord was with him. His mother took a wife for him from the Egyptian girls. Just from the Egyptian girls. She gave birth to a son for him, and he named him Nebaioth, for she said, the Lord was close to me when I called to him. So that's the end of verse 14.
Okay. So, the account in Genesis suffers from the familiar chronological problem that Ishmael, who should be 16 years of age at this time, is treated as an infant whom his mother carries on her shoulder, if that's what Genesis 21:14 means, and eventually tosses beneath a bush. One explanation of the story
Hey, if I had to carry my 16-year-old son on my back, yes, I would toss him beneath a bush.
Yeah. So he kicks her out early in the morning. It shows that Abraham carried out Sarah's order as soon as physically possible, right? Also, they talk about... Okay, the fir tree. The plant under which she throws him in Jubilees is called Elias in the Ethiopic text.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah. Dillman recognized... Right, so we talked about that. Also, there was a couple of things in here. So the focus on the boy Ishmael in Genesis is instead focused on Hagar in Jubilees. And Genesis speaks of an angel of God who calls to Hagar from the heaven. Jubilees incorporates the reference within its larger picture of the angels. In this case, it's not one of the angels of the presence who intervenes in human affairs.
Oh, it's one of the holy ones.
Yes,
yeah.
An angel of holiness, the other great class of angels. The location of the angel, the writer does not divulge. Third, in Genesis, the angel's query deals with the cause for Hagar's distress. But in Jubilees, he asks why she's crying. In either case, it seems the answer should be painfully obvious and the question largely superfluous. It looks as if it's rhetorical and meant to open her eyes. Oh, but also, God's the one who opens Hagar's eyes in Genesis 21:9 so that she notices a well. In Jubilees, she opens her own eyes.
Well, after, being talked to by this angel.
Yeah. Also, there's a little bit here on Nebaioth. So he's the only son of Ishmael mentioned by name in Jubilees, where there's no report about fulfillment of the promise to him that he would be the father of a great nation. Jubilees, unlike Genesis, offers an explanation for the name, but there is some uncertainty about which woman in the story is the one who furnishes the popular etymology. Judging by the context, Ishmael's wife should be the one speaking, but the explanation would make no sense for her, as Hagar's experience is clearly intended by the words, "The Lord was close to me when I called him." Hagar must therefore be the one who supplies the etymology. The focus on her experience is consistent with the enhancement of Jubilees has affected on its portrait of Hagar. As for the etymology, Charles remarked, "We should expect the original behind was nigh to contain some of the consonants in Nebaioth." That's true enough, but what the word on which Hagar is playing might have been is uncertain. It is likely that she is alluding to events recounted in Genesis 16:6-14, her first expulsion, and a passage not reproduced in Jubilees. There the verb Korah, call, appears several times in verse 11, where the name Ishmael is given, 13, where she gives the Lord the name El Roi, and 14, the well receives a related name. Moreover, the angel says to her in 16:11, "Now you have conceived and shall bear a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has given heed to your affliction." It may be, therefore, that her reference to calling refers to Genesis 16, but the frequency with which the forms of the verb see are used in connection with Hagar and or Ishmael, there's a huge list of amount of times, raises the possibility that the name itself is being related to the verb for look upon, show regard to, pay attention to.
Yeah, okay. So either way, the child is effectively being named by Hagar.
Mm.
Yeah. Because it would make no sense otherwise.
Yeah. And essentially, the root of the name is pay attention.
Yeah.
So strange that it wouldn't get a big mention in Genesis, as you're supposed to pay attention.
You should pay attention. In fact, you should pay attention to the show if you're not.
What's going on?
You over there drinking your tea and eating your crackers.
And your cheese.
Yeah,
and
your
wine.
What are you doing? Why? Oh my god. Okay, whatever.
Now there's something different.
Yeah, pay attention. Let's continue, shall we?
Yep.
During the 7th week in the first year, during the first month, on the 12th of this month, in this Jubilee, 2003. Remember 2003? That was a good Jubilee.
Good Jubilee.
There were words in heaven regarding Abraham, that he was faithful in everything that he had told them, that the Lord loved him, and that in every difficulty he was faithful. So there are rumors in heaven about Abraham now. They're talking about Abraham in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
That's big stuff.
Yeah, so the book reports there were words/voices in heaven regarding Abraham. As Kister indicates, the claim is an exegetical inference from the phrase acher. I don't know, a bunch of Hebrew. Literally, after these words/things. That follows an introductory, another word in Hebrew, which means "and it was" in Genesis 22:1. Identifying what these words might have been led to several suggestions. Targum Neofti places a debate between Ishmael and Isaac at this point, a debate about which had the better case for being the heir of Abraham. Ishmael says he was circumcised at age 13 when he could have refused, and that Isaac was circumcised when he was just 8 days old, and might not have submitted to the procedure had he been aware of what was happening. Isaac responds that if God were now, when Isaac was 37, to ask for all of his bodily parts, he would not refuse him. Genesis Rabbah 55:4 records this debate in two forms and adds other suggestions for what the words might have been. According to one of them, Abraham began reflecting that, though he had rejoiced and made others happy, apparently at the weaning celebration, he had never set aside a sacrificial animal for the Lord. Another attribute.
Well, I mean, he sacrificed a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
There was that whole list with 7 rams, 7 other stuff. It was huge.
But a more intriguing parallel to Jubilees figures in I guess that's Sanhedrin.
Yeah.
89b, where the discussion centers on the meaning of the words after, before these words. And the passage, a variant to the one attributing the charge to the ministering angels, places the words of doubt in Satan's mouth, just as Jubilee attributes them to Mestema. See verse 16. Jubilees differs from the Talmudic version in separating the event from the weaning banquet by 14 years, and says nothing about Abraham's failure to offer an animal sacrifice. The words/voices then became a widespread interpretation of the phrase in Genesis 22:1. But placement of them in heaven is related to other verses in the chapter. So that's the gist of it.
So, they're talking about him in heaven.
Yeah.
Very happy with Abraham. Then Prince Mestema, and that's came up before, or several Ethiopic copies read the Prince of Mestema, came and said before God, Abraham does indeed love his son Isaac and finds him more pleasing than anyone else.
Also, Prince of Mestema literally means the Prince of Hostility.
Yeah. He's come up before. Abraham does indeed love his son Isaac and finds him more pleasing than anyone else. Tell him to offer him as a sacrifice on an altar. Then you will see whether he performs this order and will know whether he is faithful in everything through which you test him. So yeah, lots of...
This is the part where the mother steps on him with a giant foot. Remember that? The giant foot boss? No, come on.
Binding of I know. Yeah, Binding of Isaac. Okay, but let's talk about this for a second. So Prince Mestema, like the different characters, including Satan in the rabbinic text referenced above, call into question the devotion of Abraham to the Lord that the unnamed speaker had extolled in verse 15.
This is also very Job-like.
Yes, just as Satan in Job reacted to God's praise of him. He focuses on Abraham's attachment to his son Isaac. The category anyone else could include God. God, the word/voices, have just declared loves Abraham, but does Abraham love God? And if he does, how great is his love? So, Prince Mestema devises a means of determining whom Abraham loved more, Isaac or the Lord. All commentators have recognized that Jubilees situates the troubling story in a context like that of Job 1-2, where the Satan incites the Lord to subject his servant, Job, to severe tests. Similarities between the framework story of Job and Jubilees' presentation of the near sacrifice of Isaac include these. I'm just going to list these.
Quick.
Okay. 1. A pious, rich hero in patriarchal times receives praise in heaven for his virtues. 2. An accusing heavenly figure responds to the praise by questioning the character of the hero and by questioning the level of his devotion to God. 3. God knows the character of the hero from experience, but the accuser needs convincing. 4. The accuser proposes a severe test to determine the true character of the hero. 5. God consents to the test of the hero, who knows nothing about the arrangements. 6. The hero passes the test. 7. The hero receives a blessing.
I would say that the biggest difference here is the fact that, so in Job, right, Job loses things. Mm-hmm. He loses pretty much everything. That's kind of the point there. And then, not to be too down about it, because God still has your back. And then when it comes to Isaac and Abraham, he ends up not sacrificing Isaac.
Yeah.
So he didn't actually lose something. He was just about to lose something.
He was willing to lose.
Yeah.
Which was the test.
Yeah, so it's that is really the difference, I would say. But yeah, the
which is a more fair test.
Sure, yeah. I would say so. But yeah, the parallel there to the Satan it's very similar.
So in this upcoming verse 17, it's going to get a little more Job-like.
Great.
Because we're going to get a list of tests that God has subjected him to.
Oh, a list. Great. I love lists. Now, the Lord was aware that Abraham was faithful in every difficulty which he had told him. For he had tested him through his land and the famine. He had tested him through the wealth of kings. He had tested him again through his wife when she was taken forcibly, and through circumcision. And he had tested him through Ishmael and his servant girl Hagar when he sent them away. Okay, so the way this is portrayed, at least, because I don't know if it's different in the Hebrew, if it has a different tone, but it kind of sounds like the reason that those things happened were strictly for a test. Like they happened for no other reason but to test Abraham.
Well, I think the explanation is here. It says, if the writer considers these to be 6 tests, the command to sacrifice Isaac would be the 7th test. Obviously, a significant number in the book. He does not number the trials here, but in 19:8, he says that the purchase of a plot in the barrel of Sarah constituted the 10th test by which Abraham was tried.
Okay. Yeah, that would be the other way to interpret test there. That they're just bad things that happened during his life, and God has seen how he acts during those events. Mm-hmm. But that is, the way it comes off is not quite like that. Right,
because here is being given a specific task as a test.
Yeah, and even...
I mean, circumcision was like a
covenant.
A covenant. Yeah. So that's not a test. That's a deal.
Yeah. But you know what? It's snippy. Not the most pleasant thing.
Wonderful.
Not like you have any memories of that.
No, I don't. But
but your brain does.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. So some research has shown that there's actually permanent neurological changes that occur post-circumcision.
You know, I have a short story.
Okay. Yeah. About circumcision?
Yes. This is going to be amazing. Let's just cut right to it then.
I'm sorry that you have an interesting circumcision story.
Yeah. And the thing is, I don't even remember this. I had to learn about this from my grandpa. He actually told me that while I was at my cousin's bris, he was crying or whatever, and then I was 2 or 3, something like that, and I tried to go grab him and save him. And they're like, "Ha ha! Look at you trying to save your cousin there." And now I think back on that, on him telling me that, and I'm like, so you thought it was funny that I was trying to save someone from harm, and you're like, that's no big deal, let the harm continue. Yeah. How fucking barbaric is that shit?
Dentistry.
Yeah, it's traumatizing to the child. It causes permanent neurological changes. So I mean, what do you expect with genital mutilation?
Yeah, right. Ridiculous. Anyways, that was my circumcision story. Not a story about my circumcision. That's different.
A story about
my story about circumcision. There you go. All right. Where was I?
You were at verse 18.
Thank you. In everything through which he tested him, he was found faithful. He himself did not grow impatient, nor was he slow to act, for he was faithful and one who loved the Lord. And now we get into the binding of Isaac.
Yes.
And this is chapter 18.
Yeah, that is chapter 18. If you're enjoying the stream so far, give it a like, share it around to your friends, family, neighbors. We're almost done with that commentary.
Yeah.
What are we going to do?
Use part 2.
Where's part 2?
Right over here.
Grab it.
What?
Pull it out.
You want me to pull it out?
Yeah.
That's what you want me to do?
Wave it around in front of the camera.
I will. Here. Woo! Oh wait, this is you can barely see this thing, right?
No, just that one thing is a little glitchy. It's fine.
Okay.
Well,
it's there for you.
Wonderful. What in tarnation? Anyways.
Yes, chapter 18.
Ooh, chapter 18. And it's a short one, relatively. It's only 19 verses. 19 chapters. Yes. Wow. Okay. The command to sacrifice Isaac and the journey to the place of sacrifice. The Lord said to him, Abraham, Abraham. He replied, yes. He said to him, take your son, your dear one, whom you love, Isaac.
Yeah, so the double address matches the later one in Genesis 22:11 and Jubilees 18:10.
Mm-hmm. I like how he specifies this 3 times. He's like, take your son, the dear one whom you love, Isaac.
He just keeps giving him this
who?
Which one?
Son.
Okay, I like them all.
Here's actually a note on this. So the divine order to engage in human sacrifice takes virtually the same form in the 2 texts, but there is a little bit of difference here. So in Genesis 22:2, he said, take your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah.
Yeah, I haven't finished the verse yet.
Yeah, I know.
And go to a high land, offer him on one of the mountains that I will make known to you.
Yeah, and that is pretty close here.
Mm-hmm. And several manuscripts read mountain instead of land.
Gotcha. So the command to sacrifice his son is phrased in such a way as to underscore how shocking it was. Thus, the deity describes the son in 3 ways to express how much he meant to his father. Yeah, kind of what you were going for there.
Yeah.
But it came off as more comedic.
Yeah.
More
specific.
If you guys remember our superintendent at the high school we went to.
I kind of do.
The one that was there.
Chalmers? Superintendent Chalmers?
Yeah, well, basically. No, we don't have to say his name or anything. But more importantly, he would say during announcements different things at the end 3 times. And so, I mean, I guess it's saying his name. It's Mosering it because he always said things 3 times. He's like, we're having an assembly. We're all going to meet in the gymnasium. Everybody's going to have a pep rally. And I'm like, oh, come on, dude. Don't just do that. It's the 3 times over thing. I don't know why people do that. But here it is all the way back in Jubilees.
Yeah, that's where he got it from.
Yeah, he must love it.
Yeah, he must have gotten this from Jubilees. So the command to sacrifice his son is phrased in such a way as to underscore how shocking it was. Thus, the deity describes his son in 3 ways. The very issue of Abraham's love for Isaac that Prince Mestema had raised in 1716 and hoped to exploit. So, it has your only son and your dear one. So in both versions, the name Isaac appears only after the 3 descriptions, despite the word order in the NRSV. Tension is increased somewhat in Jubilees in that it's reading, your son, your dear one whom you love, could refer to either Ishmael or Isaac, since Abraham harbored fond feelings for both. Its term, your dear one, harmonizes with the Septuagint and dependent versions where the Masoretic text and the Sumerian Pentateuch call the son your only one, an unexpected expression for a father of 2 sons. It may be that the Hebrew original of Jubilees 18:2 read your dear or loved one at this point, a form that could easily interchange with your only one.
So he got up early in the morning, loaded his donkey, and took with him 2 servants as well as his son Isaac. He chopped the wood for the sacrifice and came to the place on the 3rd day. He saw the place from a distance. When he reached a well of water, he ordered his servants, stay here with the donkey, while I and the child go on. After we have worshipped, we will return to you. He took the wood for the sacrifice and placed it on his son Isaac's shoulders. He took fire and a knife in his hands. The 2 of them went together to that place. Isaac said to his father, Father! He replied, Yes, my son? He said to him, Here are the fire, the knife, and the wood, but where's the sheep for the sacrifice, Father? He said, The Lord will provide for himself a sheep for the sacrifice, my son.
Since when has that ever been a thing, first of all?
And that sheep just
Provided
walked
his
over
own-
to the fire and killed itself.
Provided his own sacrifice.
Yeah.
Not quite in that way. You still have to go get it. So in several places, the writer simplifies the narrative in Genesis by eliminating repetition or replacing names with pronouns, but he generally cites the text. In verse 6, he omits the name Abraham and an extra, and he said, although at the end of Isaac's question, he adds a vocative father, where no version of Genesis 22:7 has it. Also in verse 6, Isaac refers not only to the fire and the wood as in Genesis 22:7, but also to the knife, since the previous verse, and also Genesis 22:6, had indicated that Abraham brought one for the sacrifice.
Now here it happens. When he neared the place of the mountain of the Lord, he built an altar and placed the wood on the altar. Then he tied up his son Isaac, placed him on the wood that was on the altar, and reached out his hands to take the knife in order to sacrifice his son Isaac.
Yeah. So for the sacrifice itself, the Masoretic text and the Sumerian Pentateuch Genesis 22:9 says that Abraham arranged the wood, while Jubilees says that he set the wood on the altar. The Septuagint and dependent versions also have him placing the wood, but do not mention the altar. For the end of Genesis 22:9, Jubilees improves a more awkward formulation in the base text. Genesis, literally, set him on the altar, on the wood. And then Jubilees placed him on the wood that was on the altar. When it comes to the dramatic statement that Abraham extended his hand to take the knife and slaughter his son, Jubilees reproduces the words of Genesis 22:10, but with a notable difference. So Genesis 22:10, then Abraham reached out his hand and took the knife. And then Jubilees 18:8, and reached out his hands to take the knife.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when the angel addressed him in verses 10 through 11, Abraham... go ahead, get through.
Okay. Then I stood in front of him and in front of the prince of Mestema. The Lord said, tell him not to let his hand go down on the child and not to do anything to him, because I have shown that he is the one who fears the Lord. So I called to him from heaven and said to him, Abraham, Abraham. He was startled and said, yes. I said to him, do not lay your hands on the child and do not do anything to him, because I have now shown that you are the one who fears the Lord. You have not refused me your son, your firstborn. The prince of Mestema was put to shame. Then Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught by its horns.
Yeah, take that, prince of Mestema.
Yeah. Abraham went and took the ram. He offered it as a sacrifice instead of his son. Abraham named that place the Lord saw, so that it is named the Lord saw. It is Mount Zion.
So, back to the note before, when the angel addresses him in verses 10 through 11, Abraham will not yet have the knife in his hand, whereas in Genesis he does. The writer thus solves a problem in Genesis. How could it be that in 22:10, Abraham reached out his hand, while in verse 12, the angel tells him not to do so? He orders him literally, do not reach out your hand. Jubilees includes the name Isaac before his son. That even doesn't matter. But yeah, that's an interesting point there about, if he already reached out his hand, why is the angel telling him, don't reach out your hand if he's already done it?
Yeah.
Don't read Jubilee 17. Uh-oh.
Well, the obvious implication is he's reaching. He's like, stop.
Yeah, but he's already reached it. He already has it in his hand.
Yeah, well, he's like, stop.
So here's how, yeah.
Anyways.
Anyway.
Ruben, look.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The Lord again called to Abraham by his name from heaven, just as we had appeared in order to speak to him in the Lord's name. He said, I have sworn by myself, says the Lord, because you have performed this command and have not refused me your firstborn son whom you love. I will indeed, that's not his firstborn son. I will indeed bless you and will indeed multiply your descendants like the stars in the sky and like the sands on the seashore.
Well, no, I was pretty sure Isaac was his firstborn son, wasn't it?
What are you talking about? Ishmael was born first. Then
oh,
Isaac,
yeah, that's right.
did you not remember Hagar?
Yeah, you're right.
The whole...
I forgot the order of events, my bad.
We just went
I
over
know.
this. I will indeed bless you and multiply your descendants like the stars in the sky and the sands on the seashore. Your descendants will possess the cities of their enemies. All the nations of the earth will be blessed through your descendants because of the fact that you have obeyed my command. I have made known to everyone that you are faithful to me in everything that I have told you. Go in peace. Then Abraham went to his servants. They set out and went together to Beersheba. Abraham lived at the well of the oath. He used to celebrate this festival joyfully for 7 days during all the years. He named it the festival of the Lord in accord with the 7 days, according to which he went and returned safely. This is the way it is ordained and written on the heavenly tablets regarding Israel and his descendants. They are to celebrate this festival for 7 days. with festal happiness. The end of chapter 18.
Yeah, there's a huge description of the festival and all the stuff that takes place. We're not going to go over it all.
Mm-hmm.
Although just in short here, so a 7-day holiday in the first month of the year should be the festival of unleavened bread, which is defined in several biblical lists as a 7-day celebration in the first spring month. The name for it arose from the haste with which the Israelites departed from Egypt. So it was hardly an appropriate one in Abraham's situation. That may be why the holiday does not receive its later name here, in contrast to the Festival of Tabernacles, in which Abraham and the others used tents. The name that Abraham gave to it, the Festival of the Lord, is the same as the one he gave to the Festival of Tabernacles in 1627, where the Festival of Tabernacles is actually called the Festival. Whereas the Festival of Tabernacles is actually called the Festival of the Lord in the Bible, the Festival of Unleavened Bread is not. It is, however, included among the festivals of the Lord. And Exodus 12:14 may be referring to it and Passover as a festival to the Lord. Abraham's celebration in the first month should therefore be the one that would later be named the Festival of Unleavened Bread. Oddly enough, there is no passage in the Pentateuch that associates joy with this festival of the first month, unlike the Festival of Weeks and Tabernacles. A text that does make such an association is 2 Chronicles 30. Man, I hated Chronicles.
Yeah.
Well, as you remember, after this point, Isaac never speaks to Abraham again.
Why would you?
Why would you? Well, maybe you would be like, why did you do that? That was crazy.
Little bit.
You are crazy.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Where was I? The Festival of Unleavened. 2 Chronicles 30, where Hezekiah and the people celebrate not only Passover, but also the Festival of Unleavened Bread in the second month, because they had not been able to observe them at their correct times a month earlier. Quote, so the people ate the food of the festival for 7 days, sacrificing offerings and well-being, and giving thanks to the Lord. Thanks to the Lord, God of their ancestors. Then the whole assembly agreed together to keep the festival for another 7 days. So they kept it for another 7 days with gladness. Yeah, that's really the only connection there.
All right. Well, that's all we wanted to read today, but on Sunday, we'll be finishing First Isaiah. Yeah?
Yeah.
And so join us on Sunday if you want to see that.
I think we'll have a good time on Sunday. And you know what? If you haven't watched it yet, this week I posted the Heavenly Horseman video.
Yes, Heavenly Horseman video. Go check it out. It's long.
It is long. Talk about lots of stuff in there. We got the 4 horsemen. We got visions of horsemen, Elijah's ascension, lots of stuff. Talk about the motif of heavenly horsemen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, if you enjoyed the show today and you'd like to support the show, you can donate to us through YouTube or
and Patreon.
Once we hit $666 on that donation drive that we have, which is currently at...
let me check. I just added this up today. $134.23.
Thanks so much for all your support. Hopefully everything's okay with your dad later. Yeah. Matthew from Barbados.
Yes.
And thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Yes. And
hope he gets better soon.
Well, once we hit $666, we're going to get a thetan meter. We're going to see who's the most clear. We're going to take it apart. We're going to tell you all about Scientology and their weird cult.
Don't you want to learn about the weird cult of Scientology?
Yeah. I even have a copy of Dianetics.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Wonderful, wonderful fun. If you'd like to support us in another way, you can check out our Teespring.
Yeah, and you know what? Because the thing is, if you're a patron You get all the scripts, and you could even get T-shirts if you are a $10 patron, and you can
T-shirt giveaway.
Yeah, every month.
Yeah.
So that is an option, a thing you could do. But if you don't want to do the whole Patreon thing, you know what we have? We have that Teespring you mentioned, and it's just a one-time payment. Get yourself a shirt. We have some shirts.
Yeah. Speaking of Patreon, there are those things, but also if you donate more, you can get into our patron hangouts, or you can get onto one of our weekly shows once a month.
Yeah.
And we also have an Amazon wish list.
Yeah, we do. On
our Amazon wish list, there are a number of books.
One of them is Tobit, which might be the next book we cover. Although, if I feel like we've been covering some stuff on the show that has been, some of it's interesting, right? But
it's mixed well with our other readings. Actually,
it does mix well. Yes, that's true. I would, however, say that some of the stuff on this show is very boring.
Thank you, Ragabash Dabbler, for your $2 that is going towards our donation drive.
Yeah, or you can just super chat. That's a thing also.
So you were saying?
Yeah, so thank you for the $2, Ragabash. So I think if we had some comedic relief for the show, because we had Ben Sira, right? Yeah. And that was we started off, real strong with Enoch.
Yeah, and we should do second and third Enoch eventually.
Yeah. But we're covering Jubilees, which is stuff we've talked about before. We covered Ben Sira.
And Tobit is just like Jubilees, right?
It's it's not too far off.
It's another retelling.
So I'm thinking we could do the alphabet of Ben Sira.
Yeah, we could do the alphabet of Ben Sira.
The alphabet of Ben Sira is hilarious. And the thing is, we wouldn't even need like a big commentary for that or anything. I have a translation of it.
We also have already commentaries on Tobit, Judith, Book of Wisdom.
Yeah.
Are we almost done with Jubilees here, folks? I mean, we're on part 2 of it.
We're about halfway.
About halfway. Okay, right.
Which means we have to plan out what we're going to be doing.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe you can post a poll.
Yeah.
And we can have all of you vote on it.
Yeah, that's exactly what we'll do.
Yeah. Vote for alphabet. That's my vote.
Yeah, I'm going to vote for alphabet. The alphabet of Ben Sira is where you get, the thing is, most scholars are pretty sure it's a parody. Because it's just so ridiculous.
Maybe we can have our Sirach scholar come on.
Yeah, definitely. That would be fun. And it's a fucking hoot. Some of the humor, you would only really find it funny because of how ridiculous it is. Like it's not like funny in the way that jokes are usually funny. It's a shock humor kind of thing. That's what it is. And so you get that. You also that's where the story of Lilith being Adam's first wife is from. Yeah. That's the first time it pops up.
And we're gonna start doing the Quran soon. I mean,
yeah, definitely.
As soon as you finish the script, we can make sure that everything's good. Tell me if I need more detail here or there. I'll work on it. But if everything's good, you can just post that on the Patreon for our $1 and above patrons.
Yeah.
And they can check it out, and we'll have the video out later.
Yeah.
And afterwards, we'll start doing the Quran on Saturdays.
Yeah.
I do have one person who would be interested in being in an episode, besides Aaron.
Okay.
But I'm working on finding more. So, audience, if you know anyone who talks about the Quran, or ex-Muslims or anything, and you can get them to talk to us, that would make our Quran show.
So anyways, yeah, we did all the shilling. Facebook and Twitter, free to follow us on there. That's about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think We're all good then. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful day.
And we will
See you on Sunday.